The ship's hull groaned under the strain as it descended toward the alien planet, its metallic body cutting through the atmosphere with an almost unnatural precision. Captain Vaylor stood at the helm, eyes locked on the view outside, watching as the swirling storms of his homeworld fell away, replaced by the barren, blood-red surface of Earth. For generations, his people had believed they were the true Deathworlders, the undisputed apex predators of the galaxy. But today, they would learn the truth. Humanity, a species they had long dismissed as weak, had invited them to visit. Earth's leaders, in their naivety, had requested an alliance. But Vaylor's mission was simple: prove the humans were nothing more than a passing curiosity, a species unworthy of their place in the stars. Theirs was a planet of violence, a world that demanded survival at every turn. They had survived predators bigger than anything Earth could imagine, with venomous skies and toxic seas that wiped out entire civilizations. Yet, the humans wanted to talk. He was prepared for this. They had been a fledgling race when they first encountered the galaxy, a collection of scattered survivors, terrified of their own place in the universe. The galactic community had given them space to grow, but few believed they would rise to any position of importance. Now, humanity stood on the verge of something greater, but Vaylor would make sure their rise ended here. Vaylor's ship touched down in a small clearing, surrounded by dense, green vegetation. The Earth's atmosphere was thick with humidity, and strange creatures rustled in the underbrush. The planet smelled alive, and though it was far from the savage world he knew, something about it unsettled him. The humans, however, were unbothered. They greeted him with warmth, offering their fragile hands in greeting. But Vaylor was not here for pleasantries. "Welcome, Captain Vaylor. We are honored by your visit," a human ambassador, a woman named Sarah, said with a warm smile. She was unarmed, dressed in simple attire, and yet there was an aura of confidence in her eyes. "We've prepared a tour of Earth's greatest accomplishments. We believe you'll be impressed." "Impressed," Vaylor repeated, his voice low and mocking. "You've gathered me here to impress me? You must know that nothing can impress a Deathworlder." The woman, undeterred, nodded. "Perhaps. But we're certain we can show you something you've never seen before." The tour began. They moved from the human cities, where towering structures seemed to reach for the sky, to their advanced research facilities, where scientists had cracked the code of space travel. They showed him their warriors, humans who had faced down threats not only from other species, but from their own planet's history. Volcanic eruptions, nuclear disasters, and an ever-changing environment that demanded they adapt at every turn. Vaylor was unmoved. "These are toys," Vaylor said dismissively as he observed a human soldier performing a training exercise. The human demonstrated skill and precision, but nothing he saw compared to the brutal training his people endured from birth. "Your elite forces would be destroyed on my homeworld." The human ambassador didn't flinch. "Perhaps, Captain, but I believe the next test will show you something else." Vaylor's eyes narrowed. He had already dismissed humanity as weak, and yet there was something unnerving about the ease with which they showed off their power. The technology, the strategy, it was impressive, but he wasn't convinced. "Very well," he said. "I challenge your strongest warrior to face me. I will see firsthand if they are truly worthy of your pride." Sarah's eyes flashed with something that could only be described as a spark of amusement. "That might be unnecessary, Captain. But if you insist, we can arrange a demonstration." Vaylor smiled coldly. He had no doubt that this would be a quick and humiliating defeat for the human. The next day, the challenge began. The arena was set, a large, open space surrounded by thousands of human spectators. The humans brought forward a single soldier, dressed in the standard uniform of their elite forces. She was unassuming, small, pale-skinned, and armed with nothing more than a simple sidearm. A far cry from the hulking warriors of his species. The air was thick with tension. Vaylor stood tall, his armored form towering over the human soldier. He could hear the murmurs of the crowd as they anticipated the outcome. This would be over quickly. But when the human soldier looked up at him, there was no fear in her eyes, only calm determination. For the first time since landing on Earth, Vaylor felt something stir within him, a quiet sense of unease. "Let the test begin," Sarah announced. As the human soldier stepped forward, Vaylor prepared to end this farce with a single blow. But something told him this would not be as simple as he thought. The ground trembled beneath Captain Vaylor's feet as the countdown ended. A deep silence fell over the arena. For a moment, all he could hear was the faint rustle of the wind and the anticipation in the air. Then, as the first sounds of the crowd faded, he focused on his opponent, the human soldier, standing motionless, barely an inch away from him. She didn't seem intimidated. Not in the slightest. That Vaylor's gaze sharpened. He had expected a display of fear, perhaps hesitation, but she held her ground. Eyes cold, lips pressed into a tight line of resolve. He had seen many warriors like her, but they didn't survive Deathworlds. They didn't thrive in environments where the planet itself seemed to want to kill you. They certainly didn't face predators that could tear through flesh and bone like a hot knife through butter. Yet here she was, unshaken. And that was the first crack in his certainty. The human had done nothing to earn his respect yet, but in his gut, something told him that this challenge would not be as easy as he had imagined. The battle began with the sound of a bell, an ancient human signal, one that Vaylor found almost comical. His people didn't need symbols to know when a fight had begun. Instinct and training guided them, and he expected no different from the human soldier. In the blink of an eye, she moved. Her body wasn't a blur of overwhelming speed, but her footwork was deliberate, calculated. She ducked under his first swing, narrowly avoiding the crushing blow of his massive fists. Vaylor's body followed through, and he instantly swung again, faster this time, expecting her to try to retreat. But she didn't. Instead, the human soldier performed a swift roll to the side, evading his strike, and used his momentum against him. In a single fluid motion, she was behind him, one hand on his back, the other reaching for his throat. Vaylor's eyes widened for a split second, the surprise catching him off guard. He immediately shrugged her off, using his superior strength to send her tumbling forward. She was fast, certainly, but no match for his raw power. That's what he thought. She quickly regained her footing and, to his surprise, didn't hesitate. She came at him again, this time with a new approach. Her hands were empty, yet she didn't seem to need any weapon. She closed the distance between them with astonishing efficiency, almost as if her body knew exactly how to avoid his attacks before they even happened. It wasn't just physical agility. It was a form of intelligence, one Vaylor wasn't prepared for. The human soldier was outwitting him, not just with brute force, but by understanding him in ways he had not anticipated, as if she could read his movements before they happened. She wasn't just surviving, she was learning. Vaylor swung again, but this time, the human strike was aimed at his left leg. She didn't go for the chest, the face, or any of his major weaknesses. No, she aimed lower, to where his muscles were larger, less mobile. It was a calculated risk, and for the briefest moment it worked. His knee buckled under the pressure, and he staggered. The crowd gasped. The first crack in the armor. For the first time in the fight, Vaylor felt his confidence slipping. The human soldier didn't wait for him to recover. She pressed the attack, using his brief weakness to her advantage. With a swift twist, she darted to his side, getting close enough to deliver a kick to his side. It wasn't a blow meant to inflict major damage, but it was enough to knock him off balance again. The human wasn't just physically prepared. She was mentally ruthless, calculating each step like a game of chess. His pride was wounded now. No one, not even his best warriors, had ever been able to push him this far in such a short amount of time. No one had ever made him feel like this. The human soldier backed away for a moment, assessing him as if he were the one on the verge of collapse. Vaylor's muscles screamed for him to retaliate, but something inside him held him back. The human was not just testing his strength, she was testing his mind. The crowd's murmurs reached a fever pitch. Vaylor could hear their disbelief, their voices blending into a cacophony of shock and awe. They were starting to believe it. He took a deep breath, his mind racing. This wasn't just a test of survival. It was a test of everything he had ever believed. This time, he would not hesitate. He would end this. But before he could make his next move, the human soldier spoke. Her voice was low, but clear enough for him to hear, despite the distance between them. "Is that the best you've got?" The challenge hung in the air like a blade. Vaylor's fists clenched. The battle was far from over. The ground trembled once again, but this time it wasn't from the force of Vaylor's blows. It was from the pressure building in his chest. He stared at the human soldier across from him, her eyes calm, almost pitying, as she waited for him to make the next move. His fists tightened, but the sting of defeat began to creep into his mind. Was he losing to a human? He had expected strength, yes. Speed, perhaps. But not this. Not this calm precision. For the first time in his life, Captain Vaylor began to doubt the arrogance that had defined him. He had always believed that his species' strength, born of their brutal homeworld, was the ultimate weapon in the galaxy. Now, facing a human warrior who seemed to anticipate every move, his certainty faltered. It wasn't just her physical prowess, it was the way she carried herself. There was something more to this human, something far deeper. Vaylor's mind raced. As he stood there, breathing heavily, the memories of his homeworld began to surface, unbidden. He thought of the survival trials his people underwent from childhood, facing predators larger than any other species, navigating toxic landscapes where the air itself could kill you, enduring endless wars that shaped them into the most dangerous species in the galaxy. But this human, this soldier, wasn't like those creatures he had conquered. She wasn't just surviving. She was thriving, adapting, evolving. His instinct told him to strike again, to crush her beneath his fists, but his mind told him something else. This human was different. The human's voice cut through his thoughts, calm yet steady. "You're strong, Captain Vaylor. But strength alone isn't enough. We've learned that on Earth." The words hit him like a blow. Vaylor blinked, his mind still processing her message. "We've learned that on Earth." What did that mean? The human soldier took a step forward, her gaze unflinching. "Your world, your people, survived because you had to. You adapted. But so did we. We've faced extinction-level threats from within and without. We've fought wars. We've rebuilt civilizations from the ground up. We didn't just survive. We learned how to thrive in the most hostile environments." Vaylor's muscles tensed. He had always believed that survival was the ultimate test. But this human, with her calm demeanor and quiet strength, was showing him something else, something that transcended mere survival. "You talk as if your people are like us," Vaylor growled. "As if your struggle has been anything like ours." The human soldier nodded slowly, her eyes narrowing. "It hasn't been the same. But you underestimate us, Captain. Our world isn't a death world like yours, but we've faced challenges that would have destroyed other species. We've endured wars, plagues, famine. We've fought ourselves for dominance, only to rise again. We didn't have to be born in a brutal environment to become strong. We became strong by learning." Vaylor hesitated. He had never thought of it this way. The concept of learning as a form of strength was alien to him. His people had always relied on instinct and power. There was no time for learning when survival was the only law. Yet here was a human soldier, telling him that their greatest weapon wasn't raw power, but something far more elusive: adaptability, intelligence, the ability to grow from every mistake. For the first time, Vaylor felt a cold chill settle in his gut. This wasn't just a fight between two species. It was a challenge to everything he had ever believed in. Before Vaylor could respond, the human soldier spoke again, her tone soft but unwavering. "You're asking the wrong question, Captain. You're asking how we survive. But the real question is this: how will you adapt when your world is no longer the strongest? How will you survive when power alone isn't enough?" The question lingered in the air, heavy with the weight of its implications. Vaylor's mind raced, and for the first time in his life, he wasn't sure he had the answer. The human soldier's words echoed in Captain Vaylor's mind long after she spoke them. How will you adapt when power alone isn't enough? For the first time, the certainty that had defined his life seemed fragile. He had prided himself on being the ultimate warrior, a living embodiment of his species' strength. But now, standing across from this human, he couldn't help but question everything. He had underestimated them. That much was clear. But as he took a deep breath, his pride surged back. He wasn't about to let a human teach him the true meaning of survival. No one could, no one but the strongest. His thoughts were interrupted when the human soldier spoke again, this time with an edge to her voice. "You still don't get it, do you?" Vaylor's gaze snapped to her, eyes narrowing. "What is it you think I don't understand, human?" She exhaled slowly, her tone deliberate. "You think our strength is physical. You think it's our ability to fight, to survive in a hostile world. But you're wrong. Our greatest strength isn't in our muscles, Captain, it's in our minds. We survived because we were forced to adapt. The strongest don't just overpower their enemies. They outthink them." The word stung, but Vaylor didn't flinch. Instead, his eyes searched the human soldier's face, studying her as if he could uncover some hidden truth beneath her composed exterior. "We've learned more than how to fight," she continued, stepping closer. "We learned how to think, how to adapt. We learned how to face extinction-level threats and survive them." Vaylor's mind flashed to his own world, a place where only the strongest survived. His species had evolved in the most brutal conditions, rivers of acid, freezing temperatures, creatures that could tear you apart with ease. Their strength was forged in that crucible, their resilience tempered by fire. But humanity? He had assumed they were fragile, weak. But this soldier's words made him reconsider everything. He crossed his arms, unwilling to let his unease show. Adaptation is not enough. It's strength that prevails in the end. It's always been about power. The human soldier smirked, as if she could see through his defenses. "That's what you think. But let me tell you a secret. Earth wasn't always the way it is now. We've been through our own wars, wars that nearly destroyed us. Our world used to be a battleground, filled with violence and chaos. We didn't have the luxury of being born into a world where the strongest always won." Vaylor raised an eyebrow. "Go on." "We fought each other. For land. For resources. We tore ourselves apart until there was nothing left. And then," she paused, her gaze far away. "Then we had to make a choice. We could keep fighting, keep killing each other, or we could learn to work together. We chose survival." A flicker of understanding crossed Vaylor's face, but he wasn't ready to accept it. "What does that have to do with me?" The soldier met his gaze, her expression softening. "Because you're facing the same choice now, Captain. Your people are strong, yes. But strength alone won't protect you forever. There are forces in this galaxy that you won't be able to defeat with power alone. When you face them, you'll need more than your fists." Vaylor took a step back, the weight of her words pressing down on him. He didn't want to admit it, but there was truth in what she said. His species had thrived on brute strength, but what would they do when a stronger force arrived, one that their physical prowess couldn't overcome? The soldier's gaze turned serious. "Your strength will only take you so far. After that, you'll need something more. You'll need to think." Vaylor's pulse quickened. For a moment, he imagined his people, his warriors, facing an enemy they couldn't outfight. What would they do? What would he do? The human soldier watched him closely, as if waiting for him to come to the same realization she had. "We learned that, Captain. We learned that on Earth. Survival isn't just about power, it's about adaptability. And we've adapted." Vaylor's thoughts whirled, but before he could respond, the ground shook once more, this time, far more violently than before. The sky above them darkened, and the air seemed to thicken. The sound of approaching ships grew louder, unmistakable. Vaylor's eyes snapped to the horizon, his instincts kicking in. Something was coming. The human soldier was already on alert, her body tense, her hand reaching for the weapon at her side. "This is it," she said, her voice calm despite the chaos unfolding. "You wanted to see what Earth could face. Now you'll see." Vaylor stood frozen for a moment, uncertainty swirling in his chest. This wasn't just a test of strength. This was the beginning of something far bigger. And for the first time in his life, he wasn't sure if his strength alone would be enough. The dark shapes in the sky grew larger, and Vaylor's pulse quickened. He wasn't just fighting for pride anymore. He was fighting for survival. The first wave of ships hit the atmosphere with a roar. They were massive, sleek, and cold, alien warships designed to obliterate. As the ground shook beneath him, Captain Vaylor stood motionless, his mind a blur of thoughts. This wasn't a test anymore. This was a real threat, one that Earth's strength, no matter how well tested, might not be enough to face. The human soldier beside him didn't flinch. Instead, she moved with quiet precision, organizing her troops, issuing commands with the calm certainty of someone who had faced destruction before. Vaylor's gut twisted. She wasn't afraid. He had once thought his people were the pinnacle of power. His species had ruled the battlefield for millennia, a testament to strength and brutal survival. But now, facing the alien fleet descending toward Earth, he felt a new kind of fear. The fear of facing an enemy he couldn't conquer through sheer force. "What are you waiting for?" the human soldier asked, her voice sharp with authority. "We need to act fast. If we wait too long, it's over before we even start." Vaylor's gaze lingered on the dark sky. The alien ships were getting closer, their weapons powering up with a low hum that sent a ripple of dread through the air. This was no ordinary invasion. He had to admit, the humans' preparations were thorough. Advanced tech, coordinated forces, and a strategy that seemed to involve more than just fighting. They had planned for this. But even so, he wasn't convinced. "You're not ready for this," Vaylor muttered, his eyes narrowing as he turned to the soldier. "Your weapons won't be enough to stop them." The soldier met his gaze, her expression unwavering. "That's where you come in." Vaylor's brow furrowed. "Me? We need your people's strength," she said. "Your experience in warfare. Your tactics. We can't defeat this enemy without it." His chest tightened. He had expected resistance from the humans, skepticism, maybe even fear. But here she was, offering him a role in their defense strategy. It was a call to arms, but for an alliance. "You've got a lot of nerve," Vaylor said, but the challenge in his voice was gone. Instead, it was replaced by something else, reluctance. He had never fought alongside another species. To do so now, to rely on them, felt like admitting weakness. But the truth was clearer than ever. Power alone wouldn't save them. The human soldier turned away, already barking orders. "Prepare your forces. This is not about pride. This is about survival." Vaylor's fists clenched. This was not the way it was supposed to go. He was supposed to be the one to teach these humans, to show them the true meaning of strength. But now, in the face of an overwhelming force, he saw the truth. They needed each other. As Vaylor reluctantly joined the human troops, he couldn't help but wonder how much he had underestimated them. Earth's forces were formidable, yes, but it was their ingenuity, their adaptability that might just give them the edge. They had already learned that strength wasn't enough. The question was, could his people learn it too? The ground rumbled beneath them as the first volley of enemy fire rained down. The humans responded quickly, launching their counterattacks. But the alien ships were relentless. Vaylor could feel the heat of the explosions even from a distance, and yet he stood, frozen for a moment. Then, the soldier's voice snapped him out of his reverie. "Move, Captain." He didn't hesitate. There was no time for hesitation anymore. The alliance was formed, and, together, they would face whatever was coming. But as the alien fleet drew closer, Vaylor couldn't shake the nagging feeling that this was only the beginning of something far worse. The sky above Earth was filled with fire. Alien warships descended, their massive cannons firing in quick succession, sending shockwaves that cracked the ground and sent debris flying into the air. The first wave had come without warning, but now the battle had begun in earnest. Captain Vaylor stood at the front lines, the weight of the moment sinking in. His people's strength, their pride, was no longer enough to hold back the storm. He looked at the human soldiers, their faces determined, their eyes steely. The humans had already proven their resilience, but now it was time for the true test. Survival was no longer an option. It was a battle for dominance. "Ready your forces," the human soldier shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. "This is it. No more retreat. We stand here, or we fall together." Vaylor's blood boiled, but not from anger. From respect, The humans didn't flinch. They didn't hesitate. They were ready to fight, to defend their world at all costs. And despite his doubts, despite the distance he'd kept between himself and their people, he found himself standing with them now. The first volley of alien fire ripped into the earth, leaving craters where once there had been fields. Vaylor's eyes narrowed. These were no ordinary invaders. They had come for Earth with one purpose: annihilation. He wasn't sure what the humans had planned, but it was clear they had some kind of counteroffensive in place. He followed their lead, moving with the human soldiers as they retaliated. Earth's defenses were far more sophisticated than he had given them credit for. Missile pods launched from hidden silos, anti-aircraft fire lit up the sky, and energy shields flickered to life around key strategic areas. But the alien ships were too many, too powerful. For every alien ship they shot down, 2 more took its place. Vaylor gritted his teeth, feeling the weight of each failed strike. If this continued, Earth would fall. Then, just as his hope began to falter, he heard the hum of something unfamiliar, a low, steady vibration in the air. The human soldier beside him turned to him, her face lit with determination. "Get ready," she said simply. Vaylor's mind raced. He had no idea what the humans were planning, but it didn't matter. He was with them now. He had no choice but to trust them. Suddenly, a massive explosion tore through the sky, not from the alien ships, but from deep within Earth's defenses. Vaylor's eyes widened as he saw it. A weapon unlike anything he had ever seen. A massive energy beam shot from the ground, its light blinding and fierce, cutting through the alien fleet with pinpoint accuracy. The beam's intensity was staggering. Aliens scattered in panic, their ships disintegrating in an instant. "Impossible," Vaylor muttered, staring at the devastation. How had the humans managed this? He had assumed they were still figuring out how to defend themselves, yet they had hidden a weapon of unimaginable power beneath the surface. This wasn't just a fight, it was an ambush. The human soldier smirked, her eyes never leaving the battlefield. "You underestimated us, Captain. Now we have the upper hand." The tide of battle began to shift. With the alien fleet reeling from the unexpected onslaught, the humans pressed their advantage. Fighters launched into the air, picking off damaged alien ships, while ground forces took down enemy mechs with focused, brutal precision. Vaylor watched, his heart pounding in his chest. He had always thought that his people's strength, raw, unyielding, violent, was all that mattered. But now, standing side by side with the humans, he realized the truth. It wasn't power alone that made them strong. It was their will to survive, their ability to adapt, and most importantly, their unity. As the final wave of alien ships fell from the sky, a deafening cheer erupted from the human forces. Vaylor stood still, watching as Earth's defenders celebrated their hard-won victory. But the feeling of triumph was short-lived. From the corner of his eye, he noticed something. A shadow moving across the horizon. Another fleet. Larger. Stronger. The alien invasion had been pushed back, but it was far from over. Vaylor turned to the human soldier beside him. Their eyes locked, and for the first time, he saw no hesitation in her gaze. There was only determination. "This isn't over, Captain," she said, her voice calm, but there was an undeniable fire in her words. "But we've shown them what Earth is capable of, and we're not backing down." Vaylor nodded. The fight wasn't over yet. But now, standing shoulder to shoulder with humanity, he knew one thing for certain. This was no longer just their fight. It was his, too. And they would win.